Welcome back to the Against All Odds, the Less Than 1% Chance podcast with your host, Maria Aponte, where we will hear stories of incredible people thriving against all odds. And my hope is that we can all see how life is always happening for us, even when we are the less than 1% chance. Hey, welcome back to Against All Odds, the Less Than 1% Chance podcast with your host, Maria Aponte. I am so excited. We have a new friend all the way from Spain today speaking to us. I'm going to quickly introduce her to you, and then we could just get started with this amazing conversation. Victoria Cibrián is a relationship specialist, educator, astrologer, and survivor of complex family trauma. For much of her life, she believed that being strong meant carrying everything on her own. Growing up in a family marked by trauma shaped the way that she saw relationships, responsibility, love, and survival. And those early experiences led her into a narcissistic relationship that became the most painful chapters of her life. When that relationship ended, she faced a series of extraordinary challenges, including a hysterectomy during a period of abandonment, grief, and emotional devastation. Welcome, Ana Victoria. Welcome to Against All Odds. I am so happy to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure for me to be here with you.
Thank you so much. Give us a little bit of background. What is your Against All Odds story, and how are you where you are now?
I had the feeling that was always all against me when I was a child, because I never liked to speak bad about my family or parents, but it was really difficult growing up in that family because it was a really abusive and violent environment.
Yeah.
This, of course, created some sort of protective shell in me that I wasn't aware of, really, because I had to be in charge. I was the eldest of three siblings, and I had to carry the responsibility of the family, take care of my siblings as well. It was a constant struggle, violence every day in my family and in my childhood. It was really difficult to be there. And then my father got sick and died. And then I felt responsible. And I took care of my mom and my little brother when I was 21 years old. Yeah, I was carrying everything on my shoulders, my education, upbringing, and also taking care of my mom financially. And there are other topics that I don't really want to talk about here because I don't want to shame my family, but it was really hardcore. Of course, that was all a quite painful experience. Then after that, yes, it felt like more and more I didn't know who I was. I was losing myself. And I had a couple of relationships that were, let's say, they were quite good, but synchronic also to something that happened astrologically. I don't want to speak about it here, but this is when I met a partner that was a narcissistic relationship. And I couldn't understand how I came to experience again an abusive relationship with a partner. I just couldn't believe it because I promised myself that I was never going to do that. And then I found myself at a certain point after I digested it, I didn't want to be the victim and I allowed it to happen. It was really, I ended up in a hospital. I was carrying this is when I got my hysterectomy, and this is when my partner decided to abandon me for another woman when I was in the hospital.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. It was super painful. And I didn't know where I got the strength from, but this was the point in my life where I decided that my story or my experience was not going to be only for me or for myself. I didn't want to work for myself. I wanted to put myself at the service of others. And I had to go through a really long transformation period where I had to reconnect with myself. And also throughout the whole journey, I learned so many things that in the end, I decided that I wanted to help women.
Yeah.
Like me, women who had a difficult story, or women who are independent and they cannot have fulfilling relationships I wanted to help them doing that with the whole journey that I was going through.
Yeah, I'm sorry that's everything that you went through. I had a full hysterectomy. I don't know how old you were, but I was 32 when it happened. And so I completely can relate to feeling, and it's so many things, right? Because you're grieving the identity of womanhood, you're grieving the loss of a part of you, and then on top of that, you're being abandoned. That's so many things. About a month and a half after my hysterectomy, I found out that my partner at the time was cheating on me and living with another woman. And so it was, again, all of these things that you're like, oh my God, I already feel internally like I am not myself. I feel like I'm such a different person. I feel like something was ripped out of me that was supposed to be mine for my whole life. And then on top of that, it's the blow after blow of feeling those the additional abandonment, which in retrospect, I feel like I look back and like we were talking about, I feel like life always happened for me, right? Something better came and I got stronger, and it was like another foundation to my resilience. And so I feel like that's what you found was, yeah, this was like a horrible relationship and you ended up in the hospital with this surgery, but you found those were all foundations to make you this strong woman that still goes through things and still has all these emotions, but is there to now help guide other women that are experiencing similar situations.
Exactly. Yeah, what you said, like, I was 44 when I got my hysterectomy. So I had very clear that I didn't want to have children with
Yeah.
all the
The
background that I
yeah,
had.
the trauma.
I already had mothered my mother, so I didn't want to have children. And it was a really challenging chapter, even knowing that I was not going to have children, because it was like we have an identity associated with a woman. And it was like, okay, this is the end of it. And also, the way you face relationships is totally different.
Yeah.
If you get together with someone and they want to have children, but you cannot.
Give them that.
Exactly. This was something. It was something that was very challenging for me. And I also noticed during all this process how difficult it was for me to feel, because my body somehow or my emotions were totally numbed.
Yeah.
And I was that I don't feel anything super
Strong.
hardcore, strong. And inside, I really didn't know how to handle this volcano and everything that I had to gone through, and all the intensity of my emotions, because I really feel with a lot of
Yeah.
intensity. And that was very interesting because that helped me also find a mentor, a woman who did some healing sessions for me. And then she trained me as an emotional healer, and also started to work with that. And I realized how difficult it is in general for all of us to feel, to be connected, especially with discomfort, with things that are not so beautiful, and
Yeah.
how stressful it is for everyone to manage that, and how
Yeah.
much help do we need with that, actually, because it was overwhelming me, actually. The
Yeah.
whole situation was overwhelming me. That was something also like
Yeah.
reconnecting with being able to feel again and feel everything without going crazy and allow myself to feel. That was a really beautiful meeting.
Yeah. You say that I had an experience after, and I've talked about it in different episodes before, but this was I think that your body, when you are in dis-ease, it creates diseases, right? It manifests in these diseases. And I feel like I'm very open with my story. When I was 16, I was sexually assaulted. And when I stayed quiet because I'm from a very Hispanic Catholic household, and that was not to be talked about. And I felt guilt and shame because this 26-year-old man decided that he wanted to do what he did to me. And so I was 16 years old. I stayed quiet, didn't say anything to anyone. When I went for my first well woman checkup at 18 by myself, because I was an adult and I could go to the doctor by myself, and I went and got my very first pap smear, it came back with cervical cancer. And there was no history of cervical cancer. I had never experienced any of that. And I went to starting to ask the doctor, I was like, why is this? And he's like, well, you had the HPV strand that caused cancer. Well, the person that gave me that HPV strand that caused cancer was the man that assaulted me. So it all stemmed from this one thing, right? And so I did a surgery that they basically cut off the part of my cervix that was affected with the cancer. And so he was like, okay, well, we'll check you back every 6 months. Well, the first 6 months, everything was fine. The second 6 months, it had come back. So they did a different kind of surgery that they froze everything. And at the follow-up, the doctor was like, Maria, you're probably not going to be able to have kids. And I was like, what? I am 19 years old and I've always wanted kids. That was something that I envisioned for my life. So I was engaged at the time to my now ex-husband, but we ended up getting married. I finally told my parents after a really difficult, I was 19, so it was 3 years later, but I told them what happened, and they reacted the way that I thought was going to happen. They were going to insult me and not necessarily be the loving and supportive parents that I needed at the time. And looking back, before my dad passed away, I had this conversation with both my parents, and I was like, I am not judging you on this conversation, isn't coming out of judgment, because I have now, spoiler alert, my own 3 kids. And I understand that there's no manual on how to deal with any of them. And I've gone through situations where I'm just doing the best that I can. And that's all that I can give to them, is literally the best that I can, because there's no way to know exactly how to deal with every single situation for every single child. They're so different. So I'm coming to you with this conversation, letting you know that I understand, and I'm not blaming you for not knowing how to react to when I told you this. But what I needed in that moment was love and support and a hug and feeling that family support. And I didn't get that. And I need you to know that is all I needed in that moment. And I feel like I I didn't get that. I had amazing parents. I was daddy's girl through and through. He was just a loving father, but there was these boundaries of this cultural and religious background that they didn't know how to process the fact that, if you think about it, having my own kids, I would feel immensely guilty if I wasn't able to protect my babies. And so I can imagine that what they were experiencing in that moment was, oh my God, my baby went through this and I wasn't there to protect her. So their reaction wasn't necessarily towards me, it was towards themselves. But I look at it and they didn't know how to express it in a way that was showing what I needed. And so I had that conversation with them, and it ended up being that my mom, she was never really the affectionate hugging. She was the first one to give me the hug that I needed. And I was like, oh my God, I was very prepared for them to not react the way that I needed. And so I was like, okay, after this, I have time to go to like a park and just connect and just like be there for myself and be the parent that I needed to myself. But, thankfully that's not what happened. And I was very blessed for them to just kind of be there. But I was 38, 39 years old when I had that conversation with them. And this happened to me. So it took me like 20 plus years for me to have this conversation with my parents. All that to say is I feel like I kept all of that emotion and all of that hurt and all of that trauma in my hips. And at a moment in time, I was in the travel industry and I had this friend of mine that, funny enough, she texted me right before our conversation. So it was like, oh my gosh, maybe I just need to talk about this. I didn't know why, but she was like, I'm going to gift you this massage at my hotel. And I was like, oh, okay, perfect. I didn't know what any of this was. It was called a healing energy massage. And I was like, what is that? And she's like, believe me, I'm not even going to tell you anything. It's just amazing. I didn't know that it was Reiki. Reiki has now become something I'm very aware of and know very well. But for the first time, I told her, I was like, I can't have you touch my lower back. And she did her thing, and I cried for a good hour of that massage because she broke up the energy that I was holding in my back, in my lower back. And it was the most healing massage I had ever had. And I was like, I didn't even know what it was then. It was something completely new, but it was so powerful. And it's so beautiful. The things that come into our life, like the lady that came into your life and helped you heal. Those are those little nuggets that we can then grow from. And I think it's so beautiful.
I had several meetings and several mentors through this path, but this was really a one magical encounter with this woman because she trains healers
Yeah.
internationally. And I guess it was the most important part to reconnect with the emotional or yeah, the emotional body.
Yeah.
Yeah, which it was very, very, very blocked. And I was not aware of it. And
Yeah.
it was at a moment where I wasn't even able to eat. I couldn't swallow food because
Yeah.
I was so sad.
And you're holding all that and your throat. It was so a few episodes ago, I was interviewing somebody and we were talking about something very specific. And I started like coughing at that time. And she's like, it's so funny that you're coughing in this moment as we're talking about releasing the throat
Oh,
chakra, or yeah, and the things that look into why in that specific moment you are coughing out of nowhere because you were just fine. So yeah, it's so beautiful.
yeah. And well, it's amazing how you say, like, against all odds, there are stories out there, and we're not the only ones of people who have gotten through really painful experiences
Yeah.
and have gotten something beautiful out of it. And in spite of all the pain and all the suffering,
Yeah.
all the sorrow, that this is something that we shouldn't overlook. Huh? But there was a gift inside of it. And this is something really admirable, this quality of resilience or finding somehow a purpose. This has a name in astrology, by the way.
Yes. Tell me.
Yeah,
I want to hear.
it is Chiron. I would like to look at your chart and see because you probably have a prominent Chiron in your chart.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that. I find it all very fascinating. I think that as I've gotten older, I've grown more spiritual and very aware of all the different things around me. I'm very open spiritually to whatever things I need to hear, whatever things that are in my life. I love the moon, the sky, the ground, just give me nature. My kids call me hippie and that's totally fine with me. I feel very growing up, I think in a very religious household, I was scared to be like, but I love
I understand. I understand you because I also grew up in a very religious, like really strict religious
yeah,
environment.
yeah,
And of course, for me also to open up and be myself and dedicate my life to all these weird things that nobody understands in my family, like astrology, tantra, what is all this, and living the life in the terms that you are living your life which is not by the book. Nobody understands a thing. But this has also given me some kind of direction
Yeah.
and sense, meaning, and purpose,
Yeah.
which
It's
was,
so beautiful.
yeah, if when we find inside of, there's a very beautiful metaphor about Chiron, and is in the heart of grace is disgrace, and in the heart of disgrace is grace. This paradox, it is a paradox, and it is true. Like finding the purpose and not overlooking all the pain and the trauma. And this really needs to be embraced and needs to be held and needs to be looked at with love and compassion. But also, like, we cannot dwell there forever because otherwise, yeah, it's not the most beautiful place to be.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to experience these things, and then I at the same time wouldn't change anything that I've gone through, because I wouldn't be who I am today if that wouldn't have happened. If those building blocks, that foundation wouldn't have been set, I wouldn't be who I am today. I wouldn't see the world the same way. I wouldn't have the empathy that I have. I wouldn't have the compassion and the love for other people and that I have now. So I believe that, when you look back and you're like, oh my God, you have been through so much. But then as that person, you see life with so much more beauty and love and compassion and empathy, and you see everybody on their own journey. So it's so hard sometimes to look at others. And my kids, my oldest is 22, my son is about to be 21. And it's such a different perspective, and I'm like, and the judgment of others, and I'm like, you don't know what that person is going through. You have to understand that everybody's on their own journey. If
Mm.
you're further along, then sometimes you're going to be the light that pulls that person towards their path. But there shouldn't be the judgment of, well,
Mm.
you know
Yeah.
they should know already, or they're grown, they should know. And I'm like, you don't
And
know.
there is a lot of mental judgmental crap around, when we don't really know. And I wish that we could, as well as set boundaries, of course, this is important, but listen more.
Yeah.
Listen more, be more present with, like, why don't we want to listen to the other people or person's story, or what this person is going through, what this person is living. And when we want to stick to, I don't know, to ideologies or role plays or ourselves, or putting ourselves in front of, my trauma is better than yours or worse than
Yeah.
yours. And I don't know, I wish there would be more presence and listening
Yeah,
and
I agree.
understanding and compassion, because you might think this person, I don't know, is so stupid, crappy, whatever. That doesn't mean that you have to accept some sorts of behavior, of course.
I exactly.
But we don't know, like, judging what this person is going through, or where it comes from, or how this person should be or should behave, and so on. I don't know. I think this is.
When my ex-husband and I separated, my expectation of the parent that he needed to show up as was an expectation set from what I grew up with, or who I was as a parent. And so this was something that I had to learn, that the fact that he was there every other weekend, the fact that he took them every other week in the summer, the fact that he showed up the way that, like, he did a good job because he exceeded the experience that he had.
Yeah.
His dad didn't show up the way that, and he loved his dad, but his dad didn't show up the way that he did. So he did so much better. And so when I stopped having that expectation of, you have to behave the way that I do, and I was
Yeah.
28 years old when we separated. So I was still learning so much, and I'm still learning so much, but I had to learn to not judge him for how I think that he should act. That's his own journey. And the way that he's shown up for our kids is so much better than what he got. So he's doing a great job. because in his mind, he's already elevated himself from what he experienced. And it stops getting me frustrated because when we have that expectation of someone else, doesn't mean that there's still the boundaries of this is what I'm going to allow, but the expectations stopped being so high, and I allowed him to be who he needed to be in his own journey as a parent.
Yeah.
And so it was a lot of growth in that, because at first there's this anger like, no, he needs to show up like this, and I
Yeah.
can't be on that journey for him.
Yeah, it's true.
That's crazy. So, kind of looking back, how do you think a lifetime of survival patterns contributed to your 8.5 year narcissistic relationship?
Absolutely, because first I was not able to acknowledge what I was feeling because I was always masking myself
Yeah.
because I didn't know how to handle my own emotions. I was either creating a conflict or not expressing them because I didn't want to rock the boat.
Yeah.
So I didn't know how to have difficult conversations. I didn't understand also from the beginning, this man was giving me signs of he would hurt me, and I was there and continued to be with him because I didn't want to be abandoned.
Yeah.
So it was so crazy journey that I was like, I would have never thought that I would be in this place and tolerating an abusive relationship like this. It was, yeah, again. And I promised myself as a child that I was not going to be in that kind of relationship as an adult again, judging, and they can lead you to, okay, you can go through this journey to have some more empathy and compassion, for
For the
these kind
person
of
that you judged.
experiences, for the people who are there and you really don't know how to get out of this. But I discovered that it was me allowing all this to happen. It was not him, it was me. And I was there completely engaged in the pain.
Yeah.
So, of course, the not being able to set boundaries, not recognizing myself, being always humiliated and abused in my childhood, of course, it contributed to me entering this kind of relationship.
Yeah.
All the way, I can see it clearly. And it took me a long journey to transform completely the relational pattern.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was very painful for 3 years. I was also quite in pain and grieving because I felt so much anger at the end and the way things ended. And he abandoning me in the hospital, and in front of me with the other woman. It was
Oh my God.
this is like the ultimate thing. I don't know. I just wish them the worst, of course. And for me, there was a very interesting moment because we were going to the same club and there is a little sauna there. And I was always feeling triggered when I saw him. I know that I had that there was still some sort
Like
of,
an
I don't know,
instinct.
not processed
Yeah.
story with him. And one day we coincided in the sauna. And by the way, that day I had my body was speaking out loud, saying, I'm going to meet him in the sauna and we're going to be alone, just the two of us, which is something impossible because this sauna is plenty of people. And then after 4 hours or so of me articulating, verbalizing this aloud, I went down to the sauna and there he was. And we were there inside the sauna for 20, 25 minutes. And I realized finally there was something calm inside me. I didn't want to kill him. I didn't want to.
Yeah.
Because
You
for
didn't want
years.
that original reaction of like, ah,
So for me, it was like the moment of wow, I
healing.
I think I've just come, made peace with this story somehow. It was an interesting, funny story, a funny joke, cosmic joke,
Yes.
no? Like
Yeah.
we together closed up in the sauna and all right.
But I love that because it was the proof maybe that you needed to see that you have you're past this and
Yeah.
you've grown, you've healed. Now he also can see that you don't need him, that you're past this situation.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was the cosmic ha 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 to him. Look at me now.
It was a cosmic joke.
I love. So you often talk about the difference between surviving and truly living. What helped you recognize the emotional armor you had built around yourself?
Yeah, I somehow have always the feeling, because I my consciousness works a lot in duality, polarity, and so on, that I can hold a paradox. I'm holding paradoxes all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, on one hand, of course, being in survival mode is always like your nervous system is completely activated all the time.
Yeah.
And also, you can feel helpless and like there's nothing for me, or I'm a loser, or just living to the limit. And this is something that has changed profoundly in me. And also, like, on one hand, I know that life can bring really difficult challenges. And on the other hand, I feel protected. And I know that there's a force, a driving force, a regenerative force, or the life somehow is supporting me in anything that I do. So this was an important acknowledgement. And what was the second question that you made?
So, what helped you recognize the emotional armor you had built around yourself?
Feeling completely mm, down and feeling so sad and helpless at that point where I started with the emotional healing. That was the point where I started to recognize that I was wearing an armor and started to work on de-armoring and being able to show up, step up for myself. And always, this was a training, really being able to speak from my feelings and from my truth, which was something that I didn't feel able to do.
Yeah.
And I recognized how hard even my body was, and how hard I was also towards myself.
Yeah. Yeah. We're usually the hardest on ourselves,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
very demanding. And well, I guess all the work that I have been doing that has been more emotional, somatic, and so on, has helped me recognizing that there was an armor. And I'm not saying that I cannot armor myself if I am not aware of it. So I need to be aware of it, because this is a phenomenon that can happen naturally to every person feeling threatened or triggered. Or
Yeah. You
and
immediately
of
put that
course,
armor on really quick. Yeah.
I need to recognize it also, like with my partner. And I've done a lot, and I educate women on this. I go with them all the way into creating fulfilling relationships.
Yeah.
But I also have to be aware myself of this phenomenon when I'm armoring myself up in front of my partner, because this is where the disconnection happens. So at the very moment where I drop the armor and I show what's happening and I show my feelings and I show the truth, it's amazing, amazing connection, amazing, especially because I am not abandoning myself.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's actually providing additional love and support in that moment to yourself. You're giving yourself more because as you make yourself aware of the fact that you're putting up those walls or that armor, when you realize it, then you're like, okay, I am safe. I've done this. You start taking that armor down and allowing the emotions to be known either to yourself or to your partner. I've experienced that myself with my partner, that I've realized that when having been a single mom for many years, it was just like responsibilities were just on me. Like there was no one else that could take care of it. I handled everything. And so when I have to kind of step back and allow him to take responsibility, and him doing so with love and support. And I'm like, what is happening? I have to be like, you are safe. You are good. You are in a loving relationship. He's here. Like, I have to remind myself because my immediate like wall goes up. And then I'm like, no, just tell him that you are feeling a little bit apprehensive, or tell him that you're like, you felt that wall going up and why you felt that wall going up. And having those conversations actually deepens your relationship so
Yeah,
much more. And it's
absolutely.
beautiful. It's so beautiful when that happens.
Yeah. So yes, it's something that even when we have done a lot of work, and even myself, I do this work
Yeah.
professionally with others. I always have to be aware of when am I doing that, because sometimes can happen unconsciously,
Yeah.
and then I feel it, but there's a very subtle and keen sensor sensitivity going there and immediately detecting, hey, this is the hard part. Let
Yeah.
go of that. Show yourself. Let him
Yeah.
see you. Yeah. And it's really beautiful what happens. So it's not that this cannot happen, but you can develop this
The
sensitivity,
awareness.
the
Yeah.
awareness to understand, okay, whenever this phenomenon is beginning, I can let it go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually so beautiful. And like I said, it helps you grow the strength within yourself, but it also strengthens, I think, your relationship so much more when you let that down and you're like, okay, so this is actually what was happening and why I reacted the way that I did.
Actually, without the emotional connection and emotional safety, there is no relationship whatsoever. There's also no polarity engine working, like attraction, sexuality. It all feeds up from the emotional connection. That's why it's so essential to go there, and especially people who have gone through traumatic events, who can also be quite compassionate people, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you have our understanding for pain and difficult situations. But at the same time, there's a tendency to abandon oneself. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, I'm there for everyone else, but I'm not there for
For me.
myself, for me. And this is also something that I would like to bring awareness about, because this is important in the relational field. Because yes, we need this self-awareness. It's super important to do this self-work and this connection with the self, but we also need to develop the relationship skills
Hmm.
to understand how to, let's say, influence the relational field and create fulfilling relationships. Because
Yeah.
with self-work, just self-work is not going to work. You're going to end up very, very alone.
Yes. Agreed. Agreed. My boyfriend and I went through a very tough year. Not this year has been amazing, but last year, and it was a lot of us not having that communication.
Mm,
And I got these conversation starter cards years ago, and I pulled them out and I started doing them. I just started texting them to him. And my vow to myself was, I'm just going to be completely honest. When he's answering the question, I'm going to respond with full honesty, because at this point, what do I have to lose? And it has been the most beautiful growth in our relationship that
mm,
makes me feel safe and loved and seen and heard and cherished and all of that. And it's crazy because all I had to do, and this was a huge lesson to myself,
yeah.
was I had to, like, I know that I feel all these emotions, but if I'm not letting him know, how is he supposed to know that this is all happening?
He's never going to know. There's
Yeah.
also a way to share, because this is a quite challenging space. Emotions always can create triggers and defensiveness in the other. So there are specific frameworks to do that in a way that feels safe also for the man to feel
Yeah.
vulnerable, which
Yeah.
is amazing. This is really beautiful when we learn how to develop these skills. First, of course, we need to show ourselves, because otherwise the partner cannot guess you, see
Exactly.
you. And second, we can also create this kind of safe container for a man to be able to express also or reciprocate.
Yes.
Huh?
Yeah, absolutely. So, how did emotional awareness, a transpersonal perspective, and astrology help you transform decades of pain into a purpose and a life dedicated to helping others?
Very interesting, because what I realized through the transpersonal and the study of the transpersonal through astrology, because everything is written in the cosmic code, because it's the cosmic soul, the language of the soul, the language of life is encoded, encrypted in astrology. I've been studying astrology for 34 years, and I have a practice, and I do all sorts of consultations, go to congresses and do conferences, everything. And it was very beautiful because the drama that we live is not our personal story. It is something universal. And there are
Yeah.
some universal factors, like say encryptions, that are creating all these dramas that we are living, experiencing it, of course, individually. Alice, this is my own drama, but in the end, it's something that is a universal story
Yeah.
somehow. So it helped me understand that I can be myself beyond my biography. And this is something that helps a lot also my clients, because there is something that is beyond biography, your family and everything. And
Yeah.
this is extremely empowering because you understand that you are embodying this sacred language of life. And the way we embody with our consciousness this sacred language of life can change a lot the way we experience life.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that we are not going to live all those challenges, but the way we respond to it. So it helped me a lot to not forget or not to dwell in my past or, as I said, my story or my biography, but to transcend it somehow. And that doesn't mean that I am illuminated,
Yeah.
but it's a really powerful language. And of course, emotional awareness was everything to me, because everything starts with emotional awareness. Everything else, like when we are in touch with what is alive in ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And emotional is not only emotional, and I'm going to use a word here, and I hope that they don't censor you, and sexual. Emotional and sexual, and they're deeply connected. And once I understood this phenomenon, I could really relate to that, because it seems like this is, I don't know, second category, or it is not important. We treat also the sexual as something that is just merely reproductive or recreative, or just
Yeah.
and merely genital, let's say, and it's something more profound than that. So this took me also years of research, and I also went to a tantra school in Holland for
Oh,
many
that's
years.
amazing.
Yeah. So I was, let's say, getting an education because nobody taught me this, and how to really embody this. My body understood what is this phenomenon of energy, for example. And it was so beautiful and so extremely revealing on how, if we don't reconnect this part of ourselves, we are not feeling whole. Mm?
Yeah.
So these two parts that are very connected with the feminine are a taboo,
Oh,
something
absolutely it is.
taboo, and especially in religious societies or religious cultures like the ones you and I were brought up. And it's such a pity the way we treat this with such lack of respect, I would say.
Yeah.
And it's super important to understand and to also gain the awareness on how to handle our own emotional and sexual energy, especially in intimate relationships.
Yeah. I agree. So, what limiting belief or roadblock did you feel you had to overcome to get to where you are today? One of the bigger ones, I guess. A lot.
I cannot name them. I think I have too many. So many. Like, of course, you're not worth it, you don't deserve it, you can't make it, blah. And there's so many. Maybe I don't have them all in my on my list, but I have many.
Yeah. And it's crazy because I ask this question all the time, and so many are so similar. It all comes down to like, I didn't think I was worthy, I wasn't enough. It all kind of trickles down to that if you get to the root of it. And it's so beautiful to see that we all share that same feeling and emotion, and to see that you can still have the success and love and live life that can still happen even though there's those little things in our head that are saying something. When we really connect to our heart and to who we're really truly, what we're what this human experience is truly here for us to learn. I think that it's so beautiful that we can still be successful, live a life of purpose, even though we all felt and heard the same thing up here. So I think that's really, I think it connects us as all humans.
Being human, like you can
Yeah.
like successful, like we tend to connect it to perfection or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's like you can be successful, whatever success means for you, all right?
Yeah.
But and also be human and have struggles and probably have pain and sorrow because this is also a part of life.
Yeah.
So how can we learn to let life circulate through us without getting attached to it? Like
Yeah.
without we need like how can you recognize it, feel it, let it go through you without getting attached to it?
Yeah. Absolutely. So what is maybe a daily habit that has, or a ritual that has helped you just reach this level of success and peace and where you are now?
Oh, I when I started to tell myself, Anna, I love you. You're doing great. I started to, I don't know, some kind of parenting that
Yeah.
which doesn't mean that, I cannot make mistakes and so on, but I started to
Exactly.
talk to myself differently and to be more kind, to be kind to myself also. As I was kind to others, I started to be kind to myself, and I did it a lot. And I recognized that had a very positive effect, and also believing, always believing in myself. There was, I don't know, for some reason, there was some sort of unconditional faith and
Yeah.
trust in myself. And I'm very grateful for that
Yeah.
because I actually never gave up on myself.
Yeah. And that's so powerful. So, so powerful. Anna, this has been amazing. Thank you so much. Tell our listeners where they can find you, and I will also share all of that in the show notes as well.
Okay. Well, I mostly publish in Spanish. So I have an astrology channel on YouTube called Astrología Vincular en Relaciones Conscientes. So relational astrology and conscious relationships. And I also have a blog, anacibrian.wordpress.com. I publish there. It acts as my website because I'm preparing my website. And the work that I do with women that I mostly do in English.
Oh,
Huh?
okay.
Yeah, I have a little Instagram channel. I have also a Facebook group
Okay.
where it's share a lot of things there inside the Facebook group. I also have the programs and so on. You can see something on my blog website
Okay. Yeah.
now.
I'll put that in the show notes so that people
But
can.
I would say also like the Facebook group is something interesting if there are women in the audience that would like to explore this work and they can come into the group and I share lots of things there. It's a free experience.
Excellent. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will definitely put everything in the show notes. I'm excited for our listeners to join and experience you. So, thank you so much for this conversation. It was amazing. I'm so grateful that you were able to jump on today, even with all of the technology issues that we had starting. But I think it was so worth it. Thank you so much for listening today. And I hope that you all have an amazing rest of your day. Peace out, guys. Love your life.
Bye.